Okay, friends, so this is the second video lecture on early childhood. We left off talking about the terms for inappropriate wetting of one's pants and inappropriate pooping of one's pants. There's some fancy terms down there. Okay, so moving on, we're still talking about some of the physical changes that are happening to children between the ages of 3 and 5. So this is between, they can now go to preschool, but they're not old enough to go to kindergarten. This is a period of what the term your textbook uses, sexual self-stimulation. Basically, children are fondling their genitals, they're playing with themselves, and this is very common. This is very normal. This is not something to freak out about. Your book just suggests that it's more common for boys than it is for girls. That very often, like one friend will show you my parts. Can I see your parts? It's also not uncommon for children to touch each other. Please don't freak out about this. This doesn't mean that the children have been abused or that there's anything wrong with them. It's simply that children are discovering their bodies and they're curious. And until we teach them to be ashamed of their body and that they should hide it, this is the way that we are sort of in nature. It is true, however, that if children know certain things or know certain words, one of the best things I learned, I worked very briefly at a center where we interviewed kids who had been sexually abused. And one of the things that professionals in this field listen for is the language that children use. What do they call their body parts? So it's really important that parents teach the correct names. When we start giving children's body parts, like pet names or inaccurate names, instead of calling it the vagina and the penis, if we start calling it, like the honey pot or something like this, this is sort of this is it's not considered healthy, but it's also a cue for other people that they have learned things about their body that you didn't teach them. So please use the correct terms. Please don't shame or create fear for your children about their body parts. It's just a natural way that we are. Anyway, so it says they show and touch. We shouldn't respond with alarm. This is also a time where doctors begin to see childhood obesity. So going back to the beginning of the chapter when we were talking about food and teaching our children, to like vegetables instead of to like cookies. When we're packing on additional calories, when we create those fat cells are going to go with us for the rest of our life. So fat children typically become fat adults. So we should do what we can to offer our children healthy food choices, to teach them to create an environment where they learn to appreciate carrots and apples instead of cookies and cakes, or at least in moderation, and make sure that their calorie output is in accordance with their calorie input, right? Keep them physically active and not sit on the couch. And probably shouldn't be rewarding children with high calorie food either, because then we learn to associate pleasure and reward with high calorie food. And there certainly are other ways to reward ourselves, maybe like by a good walk. So it's childhood obesity is more common amongst poor kids than non-poor kids, and this simply is a statement on the American food systems, where low quality food costs less than whole foods do. That it's cheaper to buy, cheap processed fruit product than it is to buy whole food, or it's more expensive to go to the farmer's market than it is to go to McDonald's or something. So this is really more of a commentary on the cost of food. We also live a very sedimentary lifestyle. Our sleep cycles are routine. We take our screens to bed. We don't walk places. Our culture is so much more built around a vehicle culture than it is a bicycle and a walking culture. And sometimes I think parents are even afraid to let their kid walk to the park or walk someplace. I know that I know that in my family, even that if I want to walk 2 blocks, my family's like, I'll give you a ride. Anyway, moving on. And some of the consequences are high blood pressure, joint pain, poor adult health, fat. Big kids typically become overweight adults. That's all I need to say there. We're moving into allergies. So allergies are increasingly common in children. 90% of them are caused by milk, eggs, shellfish, wheat, soy, peanuts, tree nuts. Some people are deathly allergic to these things. It can cause an anaphylactic shock, which is a very sudden. One of the things I understand, I must confess, I do not live with concern for food allergies, so I probably don't give enough seriousness to this topic as I should. But one of the things that can happen is it can cause the constriction of one's ability to breathe. And so they can sort of hyperventilate by losing the ability to breathe. I don't think that's called hyperventilate, but anyway, they can't breathe. But if we are a caregiver, again, the textbook is sort of directed towards people that might be working with children. Caregivers and probably parents who have more than one child should be aware of what the food allergies are amongst their children. They should educate other children about them, about what food allergies are, ensure daily management, and always be prepared with an emergency allergy medicine. I think of all of this, the point that probably is most relevant to like all people who have anything to do with kids is this one right here. The educate other children about allergies. So having just said this is not something that I deal with in my family, that would mean that I would be insensitive to things like food allergy or to like nut allergies, right? But if I know that there maybe is one of my child's friends is allergic to allergies, then maybe I would be more sensitive to it too. So I think it's something worth all of us knowing a little bit about. Then there's a brief discussion about the role of sealants, dental and tooth decay. Let me see if I remember what it says correctly. It suggests that sealant should be put on as soon as adult molars rupture. This actually has been documented to work. We teach dental hygiene students here, and so they recently did their poster presentations, and I was kind of teasing them a little bit. I was like, what if I'm a parent that doesn't want sealants? What are you going to tell me about sealants? Right? But they're basically to prevent tooth decay, to prevent stuff getting stuck in those adult molars, which does make sense. If you figure a 3 to 5 year old, a kid's going to have those teeth for a really, really long time. What does it say? You should see the dentist after the first tooth erupts, and then there's a brief discussion in here about immunizations. In my other child development class, I asked students to offer an argument both for and against immunizations. As you know, we've come out of the COVID post-pandemic era, and there was a lot of talk during that time about vaccinations and if people should be forced or can they be mandated by the government by policy to immunize themselves or their children. So that was a really big topic for a period of time. But there are some good arguments actually, I think, on both sides. I took the philosophy as a parent that I wanted to wait until my child was as grown, like I wanted to wait until the last minute before I had to get her immunizations. And I still kind of hold on to immunizations for diseases that are really, really bad. I'm okay with that one. But ones for like, for instance, when I was coming of age, we got chickenpox, and they would have chickenpox parties. And if a child in the neighborhood had chickenpox, all the other moms would bring their kids so that they could get exposed, so they could get done, and then they could carry that immunity. Well, now we have chickenpox immunization, and what's actually happened is some doctors don't even know what chickenpox looks like. So if a child comes in and they have chickenpox, they don't recognize it because they haven't seen it. Well, philosophically, that's kind of the point of the immunizations. The point of immunizations is to make these diseases go away, to completely eradicate them so nobody gets them. But as long as there are some of us who are reluctant to immunize our child, they're going to be what we call breakthrough cases or infections. And these are where the parents that are basically like, I'm not going to immunize my kid. Their kid gets it, and then doctors don't recognize it. So there's some different philosophical camps that people might be in when it comes to immunization. And my suggestion to you is do your own reading, learn about it. I think on the other hand, then my father had polio because he was too poor and the polio vaccine had just come out and it could have killed him and he was forever disabled. And today we have a polio vaccine, and so it could have prevented my father from having polio. So, anyway, It's a complicated topic. Also in this chapter, there's a really brief discussion about what some of the most dangerous risks to health and death for children in this age group. Drownings, fires, and burns are the most common form of death from 1 to 4. Falls with non-fatal injury is the most common injury under the age of 15. Being struck by objects under 9, and animal bites are under 9. I think that's the end. Yeah, I'm going to stop right here. That's the end of the section on growth during early childhood.